Okay, so this is a video that basically none of the make money online gurus are pretty much ever going to talk about, but is pretty sad because sadly this is really one of the most important topics, especially when you're young, which I'm going to show you why in this video. And I'm going to be talking about investing. Now, the problem is that this is like not flashy whatsoever, but it is like the most tried and true way to create wealth over time, especially if you do it while you're young. And so I'm going to be showing you if you're actually making money online and you're able to save some by the end of the month, which hopefully you are, what you should actually do with the money that you save. You can see in my portfolio specifically, I have an $162,000 net worth. And at this point, 92% of my money is in investments and only 8% is in cash. So the way I view it, there's really three aspects to money. There's earning, there's saving, which is how little do you spend of the money that you make. And then there's investing, which is how do you grow the money that you were able to save. So you kind of need to approach it in this order. If you make no money, the absolute most important thing is like, how do I make more money? If you watch my videos, you might learn of different ways to make money online through social media, for example. Then you start making money, but maybe you're spending a lot of it on just your living expenses. So then you have to figure out your spending. How do I make sure I spend less than I actually make so that there's money left over and that I don't have to just keep working as hard as possible every single day? That's spending. And then let's say you get your earning and your spending right, then you're going to have money left over at the end of the month, which you're then going to be like, what should I do with? Well, the answer to that is investing. And that's what this video is for. Because we all know almost every country has a financial system where if you hold the currency of that country, the value of that currency is going to go down over time. So if you're not doing anything with the money that you're saving, the value of the money that you have is going to decrease every single year. So you have to figure out something to do with that money so you don't lose the value of it over time. And so the reason that it's important to get into this young is, in my opinion, explained perfectly in this video. So I want to actually play this for you guys so you can see what I'm talking about and why you're between the ages of like 16 to 30. These are literally your absolute most important years to start investing, and let me show you why.
So let me show you the power of starting early with investing with this example from Financial Peace University with our friends Jack and Blake. So Jack starts investing at age 21 and invests $2,400 a year for 9 years. Then he stops at 30 years old. So 9 years of investing, total amount contributed $21,600. His friend Blake starts investing at 30 and he invests $2,400 a year till 67. So he invests for 37 years. The total amount he contributes is $91,200.
So just on principle, what would you think is better here? Investing from age 21 to 30 or investing from age 30 to 67? So this guy has like 23 more years of investing under his belt than the other guy. Let's see which one earns more money.
Now they're both at age 67. Jack's investment has grown to over $2.5 million. Blake's investment has grown to almost $1.5 million. So get this, 9 years made a difference of over $1 million. Blake never caught up, even though he invested for a longer period of time. So the earlier that you start, the more time you'll have and the more your money will grow thanks to the power of compound interest.
There you go. So that's one of the craziest things that I've personally seen. And it literally means if you just invest now, if you can just put some money away, that's going to be more valuable than if you could put the same amount of money away every year from ages 30 to 67, if you could just put away that money from ages 21 to 30. And obviously, when you're younger, that's the hardest to be able to put away money because you're probably earning the lowest that you're going to earn in your lifetime. But at the same time, you're going to get the biggest gains if you can just do it in this age group, which is why I think it's really important to actually invest early. Like $1 million difference by this age is just absurd. And the fact that the guy who started investing at 30 just never caught up to the guy who was able to start at 20 means that you need to work now to get enough money to make sure you can at least start contributing to your investments first. Now, obviously, there's a lot of disagreements about whether you should focus on spending more of your money on increasing your earning capacity or spend your money towards the investment accounts that you have. And that's actually, in my opinion, a really interesting argument that I'm going to have for a separate video. But I'm just real quick going to be addressing, let's say you have a bunch of money, what should you do with it? Here's the answer that I've developed after trying to figure out the best answer for this for many years. And by no means am I the best. I'm also not a financial advisor, so this is not financial advice. But this is what I've learned, and it basically comes from a subreddit, which is probably why you shouldn't rely on me as financial advice. However, I do think this flowchart right here, which is made by the personal finance subreddit, which if you think about it is 2.2 million people or 26,000 weekly contributors, all crowdsourcing what is the best way to earn, save, and invest money. I really think they put together a very, very nice way to see what you should do with money when it comes in. And so they put it all together in one flowchart. Obviously, one single flowchart is never going to be able to answer every single one of your financial questions, but it gets the basics down really, really well, in my opinion. So I wanted to go through how I'm actually using this and how you guys can do it too. Now, the first step, and this kind of actually goes into spending as the first step of investing, because by reducing your spending, you can save more money. And if you save more money, you now have money left over that you can invest. But basically, a lot of these first steps have to do with actually creating a budget and paying for essential items or things that you absolutely need, like your mortgage, food and groceries, or things related to living. The truth is, I still currently don't have any living expenses because my parents are supporting me. So I've been able to skip a lot of these steps for now. I'll obviously have to return to them in the future, but this has obviously made it like way easier for me to be able to progress financially. And I'm kind of already in this red zone actually. So I don't need to set my budget for my living expenses because I don't have any. But the first thing I should do is build a small emergency fund. If you don't have any debt, which I don't, the flowchart says to increase your emergency fund to 3 to 6 months of living expenses, or I just think of that as 3 to 6 months of what I need for the businesses that I run to run. So if all my businesses made zero revenue starting today, I would want to be able to keep them alive for 3 to 6 months. And what I do for that is I put it in Vanguard in what's called a money market. A money market will basically at least pretty much keep the value of the money. So it changes throughout the year, but the Vanguard money market currently has a yield of 4% roughly per year. So that means if you have $1,000 in it at the beginning of the year, you're going to roughly have $1,040 by the end of the year. This at least means that the money that you have in here isn't going to lose value over time. So you can see here, my personal setup is to have basically some money in literally just direct cash in my checking account. This is only for money that I need to move in and out on like a weekly basis and pay people out. Everything past what I can keep in my checking account goes right into a money market with Vanguard. And for me, 3 to 6 months of business expenses for that probably comes to around 15 to 30K, which is probably how much I'll have around there in my money market. And then everything after that goes to maxing out my retirement accounts. Well, actually, I lied a little bit. I max out my retirement accounts first, but since I've already been able to max my retirement accounts, my money market should be 3 to 6 months of expenses. And so when it comes to your retirement accounts, you have really big advantages to invest there, which is why I max those out pretty much as the first step. And the advantages are that when you invest in a retirement account, you don't have to pay tax during the growth of the accounts. So for example, with my money in the money market, going with that old example of $1,000, by the end of the year, they'll pay me $40 for just having $1,000 in that account. Normally, the $40 that I would earn there would be tax, and if I wanted to reinvest the money, I'd still have to pay tax on the $40 that I gained before I could then reinvest it back into the money market. However, in retirement accounts such as 401ks or Roth IRAs, both of which I'm invested in, you can reinvest the gains tax-free. So if you put in $1,000 into a retirement account and whatever you invest into makes $100, you can reinvest that $100 and you don't have to pay tax on any of that. So that means all the growth that happens by you just reinvesting all of the gains that you make can happen tax-free. That can't normally happen unless you're in a retirement account, which is one of the huge benefits of having money there. For my retirements, I literally just invest in VTSAX, which is pretty much just an index fund that tracks the total US stock market. And same thing in my Roth IRA. VTSAX, that's my only holding. And so the reason I do that is because given my time frame, I can take on volatility here. I don't really care as long as I get good returns over time. And it's very, very, very rare for someone to be able to just beat the S&P 500 through individual stock picking, which is why as a passive investor, my money's just going right into here. Now, just so you guys know, if you're watching this from the US, the amount that you can contribute to either your 401k or your Roth IRA depends on your individual circumstances. So for me, since I'm self-employed and I'm not working for someone else, I have different contributions that I'm allowed to make to my accounts than someone who worked for an employer. And the employer, for example, could match the contributions to the 401k. So there's a different amount you can invest depending on your particular circumstances. But in my instance, I just max out everything that I'm allowed to invest into my retirement accounts. And so that brings us to this stage. And then lastly, if I have anything left over, which I do believe I will have some left over because you can only contribute a certain amount every year to your retirement account, I basically take the rest of my money and I go 95% in an index fund called VTI, which I'll explain in a second. I have 5% that I put to speculative investments that there's a part of me that always feels like I could beat the market if I really put my head to it. So I give myself a 5% budget to just be able to do that. But almost all of my money goes into VTI, which I haven't actually made the contribution to yet in my brokerage account, but that's basically what I'm going to do very soon once I get the chance to actually put my money into there. The reason I'm investing in VTI instead of VTSAX in this case, both of them are very, very similar funds. They basically track the same thing. The only difference is that with VTSAX, when things are sold within the fund to change the allocation of things within the fund, when there's gains there, that actually counts toward the amount of money you have in the stock as capital gains. And when you sell an asset and you trigger capital gains because the asset gained value from when you bought it to when you sold it, you owe taxes on that. So you still might owe a tax bill at the end of the year if you invest in VTSAX. Versus VTI is basically the same thing, but is much more tax efficient because it doesn't operate under that same thing where if they sell stuff within the fund, you have to pay capital gains on that. The VTI fund is set up a little bit differently so that doesn't get triggered when they sell stuff within the fund. So it's basically a way for me to get a more tax efficient account because since it's not in a retirement account, I actually would have to pay tax on reinvestments. And so for the brokerage account, then I pick something that's more tax efficient. And yeah, that's basically what I am doing and what I plan to do in the future. As well as you can see, I have like $2,000 in crypto. It's pretty much all in just Bitcoin. Again, this is low-key just speculative investing, but crypto is something that I believe in and kind of want to be a part of as well. So I'm like, I'll put money into there, but with the knowledge that this could drop to zero and I would just lose all that money. I still have 95% of my money in something that's like significantly safer. As I get older, this spread is going to be less and less and less risky. So instead of basically being 95% stocks, 5% speculative, probably as I get older and I can't handle as much volatility, like I might need more cash, it might shift to something more like this: 20% of my money in a money market, 75% in stocks, and 5% in speculative investments. So basically just making it less risky because we know that stocks can go up or down very much depending on the state of the economy. Well, a lot of factors, but one just being the state of the economy. But a money market or like a bond, for example, are much safer and you can get pretty much guaranteed returns on that, even though the yield overall will be lower. So since I'm young and I can handle the volatility, I don't need to take the money out right now. Most of my money is going into stocks, basically 95% of it once I'm able to max my retirement accounts, since I now have the 3 to 6 months expenses stable in a money market. But basically the rest is in stocks. Again, as I get older, but I'm talking like 40 years old, 50, 60 years old, my preference towards volatility and higher long-term yields will be lower since I'd be getting closer towards death, basically. So I'd probably shift more to bonds. And that's basically my plan. And again, if you aren't investing, you should, especially if you're young, because again, this is when, as the video showed, when you can really get the most gains by just investing now. So yeah, that's basically my plan. I hope you guys actually got value out of this video because I feel like this is rarely talked about in the make money online space, yet is realistically one of the most important parts of money. Again, I kind of view money in those 3 categories, and investing is one whole pillar that is like basically ignored by the make money online space. So I hope this at least cleared up the basics for you. And if you are interested in money, we have a Discord server with over 22,000 people focused on all 3 of those pillars. A lot of you guys are more focused on how do I earn more, which again, very important, but also investing, saving, spending, just money hacks. Basically, we talk about all of those things. You can see the voice channel is actually active right now, which is sick. And so the link to that will be in the description of this video. And as always, the mission here is to be transparent and show you guys everything I'm doing to make money online. And thank you for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video, and peace.